And that's why I believe in you, because that is the greatest purpose. It's to love. Honest. It sounds corny, whatever you want to say. I don't care. I love people because there is freedom and power in loving people.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we have the crazy belief that creating success and happiness is a daily conscious effort, which is why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week. I'm your host, Brandon Beecham, and each and every Wednesday, you can tune in to hear me interview a different consciousness changemaker that is out there working tirelessly to help catalyze change and expand awareness all across Spaceship Earth. On the other 4 weekdays, you can tune in to myself and my co-host, Dalian, giving interpretations of our favorite thought-provoking quotes, sharing a bit of inspiring or mysterious news, taking questions from the audience, and digging into any other mind-expansive topics that will help keep your soul fed by tuning you into positive vibrations on a regular basis. And you guys have heard me say that if I ever run ads on the show, it will only be with a company that I fully support because I believe their intention is to make a positive difference in the world. Well, I'm pleased to announce that day has arrived and that this episode of the Positive Head Podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. All right, all you positive heads, on this week's interview episode, I'm very excited to have Giovanni Dienstmann here with me on the show. Giovanni is the creator and writer of the popular meditation blog, livingdare.com. Hello there, Giovanni. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, Brandon. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. We've been in communication for a few weeks now in regards to connecting. So this happened pretty quickly, and I'm excited to say so and dive in and kind of pick your brain on a topic that we talk about a lot, meditation, because it is such an important key, I believe, and of course many others, to the whole shift in awareness and awakening that's happening on our planet. But before we get too much into that, I'm getting ahead of myself. I always like to start the show and end the show with the same question. So my starting question, you're in an elevator, you've got 10 floors to answer. The guy next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" What do you say?
My passion is to help people get greater awareness and greater control over their minds, because your mind is your most intimate tool. It's your mind that determines how you feel, what you achieve in life, how you experience your day. You may be having a good day, but if your mind says it's a bad day, then it's a bad day, and vice versa. So whatever you do, whoever you are, having a greater awareness and control over your mind will give you more fulfillment, more achievement, more satisfaction and peace in your life.
That's a pretty good passion. No, that's a really good passion. So yeah, and I couldn't agree more. Everything starts with thought. And if we can learn to control that, and so many people, our thoughts are just out of control and they own us, and they don't realize that it's actually this thing that you can sort of dictate. I always sort of jokingly, but not too much of a joke, jokingly say, we're making it all up. So you might as well start telling really good stories, because
that's right.
It's make it up better, So yeah, let's just jump right in. You've been practicing meditation, for going on a couple decades now, right?
Yeah, about 16 years daily practice.
Wow. How long do you meditate, and what sort of what's your particular practice or style of meditation?
When I started, I was 14 or 15 years old, and I started doing 20 minutes every day. What happened is I was a kid with a lot of ADHD, and I went into a night workshop on meditation. And for those 5 or 10 minutes, when I closed my eyes and kind of followed the guidance, I went into a very quiet space. And that was very new for me, and I enjoyed it very much. So I decided, okay, from today, I'm going to start meditating every day. And I've done that. So I started 20 minutes a day. Nowadays, I'm doing about 2 hours every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yes, because it gets more and more enjoyable, right? From in the beginning, sometimes you're kind of struggling either with your mind or with the posture, struggling with something. But as you start to deepen your concentration and to enjoy the practice more and more, it's like you can go on forever, right? There's many times, like I put the bell for 2 hours and the bell rings and I feel like already.
Wow.
But yeah, people don't need to meditate that much to have huge benefits. A solid practice of 20, 30 minutes a day will already give a lot of benefit.
Yeah. It's something people who are really hardcore meditators, doing an hour or multiple hours a day, when I've had the opportunity to talk to them or interview them or just in my personal life, I always notice the same common thread. There's this sort of peaceful emanation that comes off of you all. I instantly feel more relaxed when I talk to someone who has made meditation a key component to their life. And it's like it flows over from that person, right? I mean, it's interesting for me because I meditate. I'm not as disciplined as you. I'm not as consistent as I probably would like to be. But it's really been a cool experience with this podcast to have multiple meditators over the last year. People who are very serious about it, and it's always that same common thread. There's this feeling of I feel more relaxed talking to someone who's hardcore meditator. It's pretty interesting for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are so many different types of meditation, just like there are different types of sport and of exercise. Each different type of meditation will give you a kind of a different taste. But I guess that this sense of peacefulness and presence is something that will be present in all of them. Right.
Well, speaking of, what are the different types of meditation out there that you are most drawn to or familiar with, or that you would recommend to someone who, is more of a novice and isn't quite up to their 2 hour practice, maybe still exploring different approaches? Talk a little bit about that if you would.
Sure. And before I jump into this question, even me, I'm still experiment with different approaches, right? So every week I try a different meditation technique. I have my main practice in the morning. But at night, for 20 minutes every week, I try a new meditation technique, right?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because that gives you a greater feeling and understanding about the different ways of meditating. And also allows me to help people that meditate using different techniques than me through questions in my blog and things like that. But coming back to your question on the different types of meditation, if you think of meditation as an exercise of controlling your attention, of directing your attention, then there are three main ways that you can work with attention during meditation. Either you are focusing, which means you are narrowing your attention, you're putting more and more attention upon less and less, right? So your attention becomes like a laser focused, right? Mm-hmm. So that is concentration meditation. That's the first general type of meditation. And it's the one that I would recommend, is the one that I particularly do, and the one I would recommend everyone to start with, because there are so many benefits to improving your concentration and your focus. Right. And the way that you can do concentration meditation, you can basically get any object as an anchor for your attention. The most common ones are your breathing or a mantra, right? But it can be a visualization, it can be a part of your body like a chakra, it can be anything that your mind feels attracted to, because then it will be easier for your mind to stay with that object moment after moment. Right? So that's the first general type of meditation, which is concentration. The second one is sometimes they call open monitoring. Instead of putting your attention again and again on the same object, moment after moment, you kind of keep it open, right? And that's what mindfulness meditation is about. You keep your attention open and you notice anything that is happening in the present moment. Your thoughts, your sensations, the things that you perceive outside yourself and inside yourself. And you just really pay close attention to whatever is happening without holding on to any of them. That's the idea. And the third one is a more advanced practice, which is, I like to call it pure awareness. Basically, you're not focusing your attention, it's not concentration, and it's not observation. You are just leaving your attention there, like kind of quiet. The attention is simply there. It's not engaged with anything. It's not distracted, but it's not focused either. And that's usually a technique or ability that you gain by time, by practice. So it's not really something you can start with.
Right. Got it.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So that's sort of like the more advanced approach after you have some experience under your belt. And this makes me think of a book, and I don't know if you're familiar with the teacher Osho, but he has a book called The Book of Secrets. Are you familiar with this by any chance?
I'm not familiar with this book, but I'm familiar with this teacher. I read a few Osho books in my teenage time.
Okay. So yeah, very interesting because he has all these, it's like 112 methods, I believe, to sort of explore consciousness and tantra, which of course, the word means technique. Yeah, it's basically what he was saying when you were talking about experimenting constantly with different things. I think that's awesome. And, I wanted to recommend for you to check this book out because 112 different techniques that are from, this very, very old teaching in different ways that you can attain sort of expanded perspective or enlightenment or whatever. And the way he puts it in this book, is that once again, there are these old scriptures and these very old, techniques. I don't have it in front of me to give you the exact source. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but what he talks about is he breaks them down and explains them and says, hey, one of these 112 will work marvelously for everyone. So go in and just sort of experiment. And they're, some of them are visualization based. Others are, just more awareness based. So I think this is a book that it's been a long time since I sort of dug into it and experimented even with some of these techniques many years ago. But just talking to you about this and you sort of continuing to experiment makes me want to dig it back out and kind of start playing with it again, because I think that's a very good point. To never get stuck in a certain, okay, this is my meditation or this is my anything that works. I think it's always important to mix it up and sort of continue to explore and experiment, and there's always new boundaries to cross and find, right?
Yeah, I like having both approaches. I like having one technique that I go deep every day, again and again, but at the same time create space for exploring new things and learning. Yeah, just learning new things. It's like if a person is an athlete, he may have his sport that he is good at, let's say swimming, right? But if he opens some time to do a little bit of yoga or running, he may find that his swimming also improves from the yoga and the running, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I think it's the same with meditation. This 112, I think what Osho is doing, he's commenting on a traditional tantra work called the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. And later I can give you the links for this to add in your show notes. I have experimented with a few of those meditations, and it's very, very interesting. For instance, there's one meditation which is to concentrate on pain, right? So it's something that we usually don't like to pay attention to. But what I found, what I found is I created a situation in which my arm was in pain, like I put a clip attached to my skin or something like this, so that I could have the constant sensation of pain during meditation. And then I focus on that, And what I found is that when you focus deeply on pain, there is a point in which pain is not painful anymore.
Interesting.
There's a point in which pain is just another sensation, and you can see that there's the sensation of pain, and then there's the mind contracting itself with aversion against that sensation. Yeah. Right. And while we don't have the type of mental control to get rid of the pain itself, we can relax that aversion, right? We can stop suffering the pain. We cannot stop feeling the pain, but we can stop suffering it.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I'm glad you looked that up or figured out what that was because, I found it very interesting. I mean, there's so many obviously that's a great example. I mean, that's a different kind of a meditation, right? When you're focusing on pain, you don't hear that one too much, but there's a lot of them are visualization based and some really fun, interesting concepts. And, of course, these scriptures that they're pulled from, these writings, this, Tantra, I don't know, it's like 5,000-year-old writings or something like that. And what's great about Osho is, of course, he breaks them down in his sort of interpretation of what was being meant and how to. It's kind of like, okay, here's the one line. Now let me interpret it, over 2 pages. And now go do it. Now go try it. So it's pretty cool. I recommend it for anyone to try or to check out. It's called Book of Secrets. But so you also talk about on your blog, now your blog, a popular meditation blog, congratulations on that, liveanddare.com, right? I checked out a couple of your articles that really caught my attention. One was talking about actually developing superpowers from meditation. And I thought I'm always interested in superpowers, and I'm sure the listeners are too. So can you talk a little bit about what you cover in that article?
Okay. So the name of the article is 4 Meditation Superpowers, right? It's I'm sure some people will be disappointed with this, but it's not actually about how to use meditation to develop psychic powers. Although
what?
That's also
man.
I can chat a little bit about that if you like, but what I actually talk about in that article is that meditation gives you 4 superpowers in your life and in relation to your own mind. And the first one is the ability to zoom in. So you get this ability to kind of focus deep and without distraction in anything that you want to manifest or work on. The second power is zooming out, which means when you are kind of in the middle of a mental and emotional stuff, right? Because of the mastery that meditation gives you over your attention, you are suddenly able to kind of zoom out, get out of that rabbit hole, and see things with a greater perspective and clarity. Right. The third one is the ability to pause. And that's something that we all know that meditation gives you. So if someone tells you something that you dislike, instead of just reacting with anger or disgust or whatever it is, you can just pause. And then that gives you the power to choose how you want to react after that.
That's definitely powerful.
Right. And the fourth superpower of meditation is the ability to change channels. Right. So imagine that your mind is like a TV, right? That has multiple channels. Some of them you like, some of them you dislike. Some of them are educational or entertaining or fun. Others is just like drama and crap TV, right? The problem is, for the average person, we don't have full control over this TV. Right? We ask it to go to one channel, and after 5 seconds, it's back to the other channel. Right? So with meditation, you get this ability to change channels. So if you're going into the channel of fear, of self-doubt, of self-loathing, you can zoom out, you can pause, and you can change to another channel that's going to be more empowering for you. Right. So these 4 superpowers, zooming in, zooming out, pausing, and changing channel, is what I found in my life is the most universal about the benefits of meditation.
Yeah, that's they don't sound like shooting lasers out of your eyeballs or anything like that. But those are very powerful, very definitely superpowers. I know, like the ability to be a non-reactive presence, right? Someone is coming at you sideways or sort of, triggering you. You're probably a lot less easily triggered than you were when you started meditating, right? You have this calm presence is there and certainly serves you in maybe tumultuous energy. You're around someone who's trying to rile you up. And of course, that is the goal with all things, right? Happiness lies in or peace is the goal, right? If you're not peaceful, in my opinion, you've instantly lost, and whatever's going on. And if this is meditation, truly can enable you, empower you to be at peace, regardless of whatever sort of turbulence is around you outside. And someone who's kind of, excitable and amped and so forth, this is one I've had to work on a lot. And I do think meditation has helped me with it. Continuing to just take those deep breaths. Even, of course, breathing is so tied in with meditation too. Oftentimes, instead of reacting, taking deep breaths. They say you can't, if you're breathing deeply, you can't really be upset. And I've really worked on using that as a tool I catch myself getting into an aggravated state, just really focusing on my breathing, and it really helps a lot.
Yeah, you're right. The breath is the bridge between the body and the mind, because it's one of the only things in our body that it's both conscious and unconscious, right? So every single emotion, every single mental state has a very distinct breathing pattern. And that's something that the yogis have discovered like millennia ago. So if you're angry or anxious, you breathe in a very particular way. At that point, if you stop and start breathing in a different way, right? Your emotion will change. It's automatic. There's no way that you can feel sad if you're breathing like a person that is excited breathes. So you can change your emotion by changing your breath, and you can change your breathing by changing your emotion. It's a very, very strong connection there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that Tony Robbins talks about, changing your state, and that's really what it's. It's one of those things. Most people have lived their lives thinking, they're just sort of, they're these reactionary beings that don't have any power. Essentially, they're disempowered all the time, and it's feels really good when you have a victory the first time, or any time rather. I know for me, as I've sort of went down this path, as I overcome reacting and consciously choose how I'm going to show up in a turbulent situation, it feels so good afterwards to have kind of like, oh my gosh, I didn't react. I actually kept my composure. And like I said, for me, maybe it feels more of a victory than others, because that has been a big challenge in my life. I'm, very fiery and can quick to sort of flare up and become very animated and so forth. So it's been a real challenge. And as I get better at it, I feel very proud of myself, because there are things that will happen. I'll be like, oh man, if this person had done that 10 years ago, they would have had their head bitten off so severely they wouldn't even know it hit them. And now I'm just calmly dealing with it. Like, is this growing up? Is this growing up, or is this meditation? And so it's probably a daily conscious effort. It really.
Yeah, definitely.
It really is.
Especially in relationships, I think that the ability to pause and to be aware of what's going on inside your mind when you are in a relationship gives you actually superpowers, right? I mean, imagine everyone out there that is in a serious relationship, and you're going to a fight that you usually go into. If you're able to just be present and quiet and non-reactive in that fight, it will come out much better at the end.
Yeah.
It just, otherwise our mind just jumps in and we escalate the situation, and we say things that we regret, and we just feel like losers.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Every time I've ever reacted, and a big flare of ego or emotion, and it's like, oh, let me tell you how it is, and you just rip the other person's head off, and then it's like the worst hangover come down ever after. It's like, oh my God. Especially now, it's one thing when you do that and you're really unaware of sort of the goal is to be at peace, and if you're not at peace, you lose. It's like, at one point, ignorance, I guess, makes it a little easier to behave that way. But now if I have any of those moments, I feel it's like literally before it's even over, I feel like so bad, like, oh man. And I think that's an important piece of Giovanni too, is to understand that this is part of the process as we grow. I don't really think it's good that I would feel bad like that, because that holds you back. So if you do react, if you do break down, it's like, okay, I'm aware of it. I'm now course correcting, and that's okay. That's a part of, it's 2 steps forward, it's 1 step back, because a lot of times I think then we flip into this thing where we're really hard on ourselves and we're beating up on ourselves for what we should or shouldn't have done. And then, that understanding that it's all part of the process.
Exactly. I think as long as we are aware that we could have acted better, and we take that awareness and we take it to action, we actually go and change the way we think, the way we behave, then we don't need to chastise ourselves. You don't need to be hard on yourselves, because that doesn't help.
Nope.
It's interesting,
Definitely.
the Tibetans, they don't have a word in their language. They don't have a word for guilt.
Oh, really? Wow.
They don't have it. The closest word they have to that is a word that translates as a sentence in English. It would be an intelligent regret that decides to do things differently. Right?
Very
the
interesting.
idea of guilt they don't have.
Wow. I learn something new every day, and that is a cool one. And it would make so much sense for Tibet, of all places, to have figured that one out.
Well, their culture, together with the Eastern religions, they are all about purifying the mind, right, and taking you towards enlightenment. So emotions like guilt, like shame, they are negative emotions still. They are emotions that people kind of feel proud that they have it sometimes, but they are negative emotions. They are poisoning your mind, and they're very likely poisoning your blood as well, and creating all sorts of stress and diseases along the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, now seems like a good moment to take a quick minute to tell those of you who aren't familiar a bit about our sponsor, Gaia. I've been a big fan of Gaia for many years now, which is why they're the only content provider I've ever reached out to in regards to potentially supporting this podcast. So needless to say, I'm very excited they're now supporting the show. Gaia truly is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web. They have an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. Just to give you an example, on the show Missing Links, the incredible researcher Greg Braden explores all the biggest questions concerning who we are, where we come from, where we're going, by connecting the missing links between science and spirituality to complete our understanding of humanity's history and to better understand the interconnectedness of all things. Awesome, right? And that's just one example. As you guys constantly hear me say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to go deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Now, curious, as someone who's done so much meditation, of course, you always hear about these kind of transcendental experiences that people have. And of course, it becoming sort of a religious experience or connecting with source or God or your higher self or whatever you want to call it. I'm curious, have you had those sorts of experiences, achieved those sorts of experiences through the, sort of rigorous amount of meditation or that you've been through?
Yeah, I've experienced many different things. From feeling my body to be half outside my body, so like a kind of a half astral projection, to hearing sounds that are not physical sounds, to seeing lights and shapes inside of me. But all of these are interesting, and they are somehow... they indicate somehow that the meditation is progressing. But the most interesting ones, I think, is the insights that come through your meditation. The insights about how your mind works, how the world works. And also, lately for me, it's just almost every time I meditate is just a very solid sense of peace and joy. A joy that doesn't depend on anything external. It's like being happy for no reason.
Yeah. And that's the ultimate. I mean, I've said it a bunch of times. Might as well say it again. You win. You're at peace. You're feeling blissful automatically. I mean, that is the goal. All the activity that we do is to achieve that. We're looking for that sort of that fulfillment. And when you can find that fulfillment sitting in a corner, speaking of Osho again, he said, don't just do something, sit there. And I believe this is what he's getting at. It's like, there's the shortcut. That's the thing about life that I figured out is on this sort of spiritual quest of, self-realization and expanded consciousness and understanding who and what the heck I am and what we all are, is like realizing there's like shortcuts to everything, abundance, peace, happiness. And so many people have gotten caught up in all these external reachings for these experiences. And meanwhile, they're it's like, why don't you take the shortcut? And granted, they come with their own challenges and so forth, like anything. But it's I think it's such an empowering thing when you realize it's so close to home. Everyone listening who hasn't ever meditated, who's deeply depressed or unhappy, to hear, okay, here's someone who's meditating a couple hours a day, and what is the experience? Deep peace, and happiness and bliss even in those moments, right? And you talked about 2 hours, and you're like, wow, 2 hours already. It seems like I just started. I want to go more. That's an interesting phenomenon, right? I mean, it's so simple. You don't need anything. There's not, I got to have this exterior thing happen in order. It's really shifting from a proactive being from a reactive being to a proactive being, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, there's, you mentioned strange phenomena and powers, things like this. There's also, my intuition has become much more sharp. So sometimes I know something that's going to happen that day, and it just happens. Or I think, and then something happens. Like this type of phenomena becomes more and more common.
You're right. Well, now that brings me to something that, and of course, I get back to these sorts of, I love people's stories. Story, such a geek for any good story. And you had mentioned to me when we were talking before this via email, you had mentioned that you had done some experiments with psychic phenomenon as a teenager. I'd love to hear about that.
Okay. So,
because intuition really falls into that. I mean, for me, as you sharpen that, you clear your mind, your intuition becomes clearer, and it really is a psychic phenomenon in itself. It's like you're getting information above and beyond, what's immediately in front of you, right?
Okay. Yeah. And it's the first time that I'm going to be talking about this in public, so I don't know if I'm going to regret it.
You heard it here. You heard it here first, folks.
Yes, exactly. So actually, one of the reasons why I was so interested in meditation when I was a teenager was because I wanted to develop psychic powers. I was fascinated with the idea of developing extrasensorial perception and all they call it siddhis in yoga. So that was one of the motivations for me. And it's good because whatever motivates you to start practicing every day, it's great. By the time your motivation may change, but you continue to practice. So experiments that I have run, well, multiple times I try sending thoughts to other people. Right. So I used to have this game where I would transfer a number from 1 to 20, and then I would go and talk to the person and say, "Hey, tell me the first number that comes to your mind from 1 to 20 without thinking, like the first number that comes." And often it would be the exact number that I had sent.
Wow.
And sometimes not, of course, because we don't have control and we don't have. I didn't have enough training. I think if I was to focus on developing these powers now, I would have much better success because my concentration is 10 times better, and so is my patience.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to tell a little story. There was when I was 14 years old and I was starting to read about these things, some of my classmates at school, they were laughing at me saying like, these things don't exist and you are just wasting your time and living in La La Land or something. Right. And then I felt, okay, I want to teach these guys a lesson, right? So what I did is during the weekend, so I got one of these friends of mine that was very skeptical. And during the weekend, I focused really, really hard in sending a number, transmitting a thought that was a number into his mind. Okay. So what I did is I closed my eyes and I imagined myself that I was him. So I tried as much as I could to put myself under his shoes, to see the world as he sees it, to feel the world and have the thoughts and the body and everything that he is. So that my consciousness would be very connected to his consciousness.
Right.
And then when that connection was established, when I felt it was established, then I planted the seed of a thought in his mind. Right? So
Smart
I did
approach.
this. Yeah. I think, well, there's a term in quantum physics that may be related to this. I think it's quantum...
Entanglement?
Entanglement. That's it.
Yeah.
You're the man.
Yeah, and
So
quantum
perhaps
entanglement is
what
basically
happened
where
there
they
was-
will take, just to say real quick, quantum entanglement is where they'll take two particles and they'll basically put them together and then separate them by a great distance. And now that they become entangled, they can do something to one of them and the other one will instantly react as if it had happened to, say particle A and B, they've been entangled, then separated. You do something to particle A and the same thing happens to B, the same, sort of effect. And so yeah, of course, a lot of people talk about, okay, well, we're just made of particles like this too. We can entangle and that's why you have intuition or can feel, other people or when something happens to someone that you're connected to, it's across space and time too, right? So these things will happen with particles. They've done these sort of experiments at great distances and, instantaneous. There's no time lapse. But anyway, sorry, I just thought I would explain a little bit about that.
It's a good explanation. Okay, so what happened is Monday came and then I went to school and then I said, okay, can we play a game? I will try to guess. I said guess, right? But I'm actually not guessing, right? I'll try to guess the number that you think from 1 to 1,000. Right? But before that, let me write it on a paper and put it inside your pencil case, so you don't say that I was lying. So I wrote 342. Right? And I fold it, I put it inside his pencil case, I close it, and then I said, okay, now from 1 to 1,000, tell me the first number that comes into your mind. And he said, 342.
Oh my gosh. That's so good.
I could not believe it. I mean, even though I believed it before it happened, but I was so happy. And then I said, man, just open your pencil case and read it. And he was speechless. He was speechless.
Wow. That's a cool story. That's that's not like saying 1 to 10 or 1 to 20. Okay, that's cool. 1 to 1,000, that's cool. That's like, what, 1/10 of 1% chance? I mean, that's incredible.
So as a result, he opened up for this type of things. He said, okay, I want to know more about this. Tell me which books to read. And so I felt like, wow, I really accomplished the mission here.
What a cool story.
Yeah, so in my mind, these things, they definitely exist. I have seen them happening multiple times. I don't have the ability to create them at will. I haven't not trained to that level. I think there are very few people that have this ability to create this phenomena at will and to always be accurate. But
yeah, it's not an exact science. That's the thing is, whenever you talk about psychic phenomenon or anything like that, people will say, oh, okay, well then tell me what the lottery numbers are. And it's like, that's not quite how it works. It's like someone who is psychically sensitive or even discerning information from future potential timeline. First of all, there's potential timelines. So that's one thing. So whatever someone may be picking up as far as fortune telling kind of stuff or predicting the future, it's like, this is not an exact science. It's like these are very subtle energies, and people are just kind of discerning what they can, and through the filter of their own consciousness, which sometimes is going to disrupt things and sometimes not. And, it's not like we have a profound understanding of how all this works and we can make it, work as consistently as we can our coffee maker or something like that. But it's I love hearing these types of stories, because it really just goes to show it's like you put a lot of attention, energy, focus into achieving this, and you got results. It doesn't mean you're going to get them every time, but maybe you could get them. I think you make an interesting point now that you're so disciplined and have spent so many years focused on mindfulness. You probably would get even better results. But then again, it's just kind of like you're just playing a game. It's not like, it's just sort of like a fun experiment, right?
I think the real insight from all of these phenomena is the power of your own mind. Is to show you how powerful your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions are. Right. So if you know that by thinking something, you can make the person think like that, or you can influence a certain event outside yourself to happen, then it invites you to have a look at your own thoughts and feelings, like, okay, what else am I creating in the invisible world, little by little, by repeated thoughts and intentions? What else am I creating inside my mind?
Right.
How is my mind right now? Is this the life that I want to create? Right. So, or imagine, like, suppose your mind had 1,000 times more powerful than what it is now. Then, with the thoughts and intentions and emotions that you're having right now being 1,000 times more effective, would you be happy with that or not?
Yeah. Right. Let me see.
So
exactly.
I think that's the real gift of understanding that these things work, is bringing the attention back to your own inner world and cleaning yourself up, so to speak, purifying your thoughts, your intentions, your emotions, because that will determine the life you lead, and that will determine strongly or weakly, that will determine the type of things you are going to manifest in your life.
Absolutely. Now, you talk about something that I'm curious to hear you kind of explain. You talk about spiritual bypassing. What is spiritual bypassing?
So spirituality invites us to have very high ideals, right? Ideals that we are not going to be angry. We are not going to host negative feelings inside ourselves. And we're going to have good intentions and good emotions. And we're going to search for happiness inside of us and in higher things rather than outside of us. So these are all beautiful ideals, right? But there's a distance, there's a gap between who we are right now and those ideals, right? And because of this gap, spiritual bypassing can happen. So spiritual bypassing happens when you're not being honest about where you are right now, right? Where you pretend like something happened and you're really pissed off and you pretend to not be angry, either to yourself or to others, because according to your own way of thinking, you shouldn't be angry because that's not spiritual. Right. So spiritual bypassing has many ways of manifesting in a person's life, but in my understanding, they're all related to a lack of radical self-honesty, right? And what happens when you're not honest about where you are, about what you're actually feeling, then your opportunity to grow is diminished, right? Rather than saying like, hey, I feel I shouldn't get angry about this, but I really got angry about this. What am I going to do about it? And how can I release this anger? That's a much more honest and healthy approach.
Right.
That's one example of spiritual bypassing. The other one would be, let's say you still desire certain things of the world. You still desire to have a lot of money or fame, but you pretend you don't care about those things, right? Or you're trying to suppress these desires. But you know that when you suppress something, that thing doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. It continues influencing your life, your inner world from inside, and it's still there. You haven't dealt with the problem. You've just kind of put it under the rug, right? So that would be another way of spiritual bypassing.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. If you react or one of those things, accepting that part of yourself, or if there's a part of yourself that is still, so many people get caught up on shame. They feel shame about their sexuality, or shame about, there's a million things that someone can feel shamed about. And I think it's such an important piece in our spiritual development, in our self-growth, to learn to say, hey, I've got this piece of myself, and I think there's room for improvement there. I still have this desire that maybe, instead of feeling shameful about it, say, hey, the journey is the goal. I'm a work in progress, and this is a piece of myself that I'm going to bring love to. Because like you said, whenever you're shoving something down and sort of repressing it, there is nothing good that's going to come from that. Rather, embracing it with open arms and bringing love to it and understanding, and these are the things that will transmute it into maybe something higher, a higher expression that you would like it to become. And I think, very, very interesting topic, and one that everyone has to deal with, especially when you're on this sort of journey. It's like it's so easy to fall into this, I'm going to judge myself, or then I'm going to try and deceive or repress or lie or whatever, and you're sort of off the mark when you're doing that.
And, spiritual bypassing has the word spiritual in it. But it's not spiritual. It's just bypassing. You're just being dishonest with yourself. If you look at the ideals that the spiritual traditions promote, the yogis, they have 5 rules of life, 5 rules of conduct, and the first 2 is ahimsa, which means non-violence, and the second one is satya, which means truthfulness. Right. So if you apply non-violence towards yourself and truthfulness towards yourself, then you're not going to fall into the trap of spiritual bypassing.
Yeah.
Right? And these ideals, they are to be practiced starting from ourselves, right? Being honest. Sometimes it means, and I've done this multiple times in my own life, in my own journey, saying to myself, like, I wish I wouldn't say such a thing, but I know I feel I have to say it, and maybe it's not the most spiritual thing, but I feel I have to say it, so I'm going to say it. Rather than pretending, rather than justifying to yourself, I'm saying that because actually that's good for that other person, and going to all of these rationalizations. No, just being honest, like, hey, maybe this is not the best thing to do, but I feel an impulse to say this, so I'm going to say it, and let's see what happens.
Right. Yeah, it's a slippery slope to get caught on this sort of like, okay, now I've got to play the role of guru extraordinaire, and I'm never going to do anything human, or I'm never going to be petty, or I'm never going to be, these things are going to happen. It's maybe less and less frequently. And when they do, own them, look at them fully, and allow them to be, allow some of these things, I think, are, as our journey is a spiral. And I think we circle back on lessons that we feel like we've learned. And then next thing you know, you come back to them again for further refinement. And I think sometimes we get far down the road, and we don't expect we're ever going to see that side of ourselves again, or what have you. And then here it is, rearing its head, and just, instead of calling it an ugly head, it's a part of the story, and bring love to it. And I think that is the quickest, most effective way to move through it, because repression certainly doesn't do anyone any favors.
Man, I've made this mistake so many times. I felt like I'm beyond this. This problem is finished. I'm not going to make this mistake anymore. And then after 6 months or something, boom, it happens again, right? My wife has witnessed this multiple times, right? It's like, no, I'm beyond this. Like, I've said this 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago.
Right.
It's just the way the mind works, right?
I saw a quote not too long ago. It says, if you think you're enlightened, spend a week with your family. And it's like, those are the ones that are going to challenge you the most. And that's the thing, when you realize it's all there. And when you realize, and this gets to, an interesting topic, how to deal with people when you become more mindful. How do you deal with difficult people? And I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. For me, it's like when you realize that they're there to serve you, they're there to challenge you in a good way, instead of being mad because what they are or what they aren't and how they should be seeing things my way and I have the right perspective and they don't. Instead, you understand this person is here strictly it's a reflection in my reality so that they can challenge me to overcome my reactivity. I think that's one of the key things. We get so caught up at looking at, difficult people or unreasonable people or bad, quote unquote, bad people. But what if they're just there to challenge you to not fall into the same negativity and judgment and all those things, right?
I think it's a good attitude to have. It's a great way to see everything as an opportunity for you to grow.
Yeah.
Right? That life is happening for you, not to you.
Yes, I love that one.
Yeah.
Yep, very fond of that saying. It's so true.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, some people, if some people that you're spending time with are troubling you, are making you feel frustrated or angry or something, it shows that there are still some buttons in you that can be pressed, right? And they are there to show that, hey, you still have this button that someone can press. And if you can be in that situation and continuously study yourself and see how you can make yourself go beyond that, or make yourself achieve a state or a transformation where that particular thing, even if it happens again, it doesn't bother you anymore, then that person has fulfilled its purpose. That behavior has fulfilled its purpose for you.
Yeah. It makes me think of the Rumi quote, how will your mirror be polished if you're annoyed by every rub? Or something to that effect. That's close. Maybe not exact quote, but I love that one. It's so true. So that's, for me, Giovanni, that's been one of the biggest challenges in my own journey is overcoming agitation, not getting agitated, and not being annoyed by those rubs, or things aren't going my way, or people are not understanding what I'm trying to, get them to understand. And man, it's been quite it's been a journey. And like I was talking about earlier, it feels really good when you have those successes. I encourage any of you guys out there who have not set into a situation, let's say an argument or a disagreement, and you've never approached an argument from the standpoint of, try this. Instead of going into this argument to prove my case and to be right, I'm more interested in not reacting in a way that is agitated. And I'm even willing, being peaceful is more important to me than being right, and letting go of your need to be right. When you're so right about something, because we all have those types of interactions and arguments or disagreements, right? And instead of driving home your point with agitation and let me prove to you why I should win here, you let it completely go. See how you feel after you do that. You will feel like such a champion. It feels really good. It feels better than being right. Transcending the need to be right. Really is, it's a whole nother level.
It's like your mindfulness.
Still working on that one. Say that again?
It's like you're a mindfulness badass.
Yeah, exactly. Easier said than done sometimes, but I've had my moments, and I can tell you the times I have, it feels really good. So I'm interested also to discuss a little bit with you another article of yours that I found very intriguing on the Bhagavad Gita and the three gunas. Can you speak a little bit about that? I thought that was a very interesting article on liveanddare.com, and would love to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So the Bhagavad Gita can be considered the Bible of India, the Bible of Hinduism, right? It's a beautiful book. Everyone should read it. It's just, it's wonderful. And one of the key ideas that book speaks about is the three gunas. And that's an idea that it's older than the book. It comes from the philosophy of Sankhya, but it's the way that they have analyzed life and phenomena in India, which is saying that everything has three one of three main characteristics, right? And they call these three gunas the rajas, tamas, and sattva. Okay, so these three characteristics. So tamas is darkness or inertia. So it's the quality of stability, of kind of heaviness, of materiality, but it's also laziness and kind of insentience, right? The second characteristic is rajas, which is the characteristic of energy, movement, excitement, transformation, passion, right? And the third one is sattva. Sattva is balance, it's harmony, it's clarity, intelligence, awareness, right? So there are these three characteristics: the stale or stable, the movement, and the balance, and the awareness, right? In everything in our life, all phenomena, all types of food, all types of people, all things we say, all emotions, they have a mixture of these three characteristics. And the spiritual path is moving from tamas and rajas into sattva, because sattva is the mind that is clear, clean, peaceful, composed. So that's the challenge. And thinking in terms of gunas, you can look at anything in your life and see, like, what's the main characteristic of this thing, right? And is this helping me become more sattvic in my mind and in my life, or is it making me more tamasic? So, for instance, spending an afternoon watching TV is very tamasic, right? It will increase that energy of kind of laziness and comfort and not moving in you, right? While going out to do some sport, that will increase the rajas in you. And rajas is a great way of getting out of that staleness of tamas, right? And activities like meditation, reading, having a soulful communication and relationship, things like this, they nurture your spirit. They are sattvic. They make your mind be quiet, be introverted, peaceful, clear. So speaking of the three gunas invites us to constantly reflect. What is the quality of my thoughts, of my actions? And you can apply this to anything in your life. You can even say, like, what's the quality of the type of TV shows that I watch? What's the quality of the type of websites I go to? What's the quality of the type of food I take? Right? So if after a meal I feel very heavy, then that food has increased the tamas in me. If I have drunken alcohol and I'm so agitated, like the rajas is off the roof, right? But if I had a good meal, if I ate healthy, and I'm feeling good and well, then that food was sattvic, so that's good for me. So that's the general feeling and the theory behind it.
Yeah, I love that, because it gives you something, kind of some identifiers to look at in sort of almost like a litmus test for any activity or energetic exchange that you're having. And I think once you understand the difference between the three, it's very easy to see which one is sort of the dominant, characteristic in the activity. And it gives you a way to bring it, sort of analyze, bring it to the surface, and then, of course, course correct if necessary, in any given, change the channel like you talked about earlier, right?
Yes. So basically, just keeping in mind that everything we consume through the five senses, right? The things we see, we watch, we eat, and everything, and the way we act, the way we think, the way we speak, all of this is increasing one of these three qualities in us: the rajas, the sattva, or the tamas. And just being aware of that and making better choices. That's what it's. I'll say that's what the spiritual path is about: awareness and more enlightened choices.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, that's a helpful way to help analyze what the heck is going on in this busy world and life where we're constantly making decisions. And if you can have something to sort of anchor to, I think it helps to gently guide you in the direction you want to go. So moving along, you have I have a strong need. I say that jokingly, but I love to hear stories of synchronicity. And you had mentioned to me that you have an interesting story of synchronicity in regards to how you met your wife. And
yes.
I know I would love to hear it, and I know my listeners would love to hear it. So let's hear it.
Okay, I'll try to give the 5-minute version.
Fair enough.
Which is challenging.
If it takes more, that's okay too.
Okay, so how should I start? So when I was about 20 years old, I was studying Japanese, the Japanese language, because at that time I was practicing Zen Buddhism. And my ideal at that time in my life was to become a Zen Buddhist monk. And if I wanted to do that, my training would have been in Japan. And then I need to know Japanese. So all of that led me to study Japanese, which led me to win a scholarship to a 6-week all-paid Japanese course in Japan, Osaka. All right.
Cool.
But the time that I won that scholarship, I had, due to many events that had happened, I had changed my spiritual path and I was not into Zen Buddhism anymore. So Japanese was no longer important in my life. Yet I had won that scholarship, so I felt like, okay, I might as well go and see what's going to happen. And interestingly, before taking this trip, I had a very strong feeling in my heart that in this trip to Japan, I was going to meet someone that I had met from previous lifetimes, that I knew from previous lifetimes. I thought I would meet someone important that is a past life connection, basically. Okay, now let's pause this side of the story and let's talk about my wife's side of the story. When she was born and raised in Tehran, Iran, and she was studying Japanese as well. And she also won this scholarship. And she had a dream that she would meet her soulmate in Japan. And in this dream, she was crossing a bridge with a foreigner, and this foreigner asks her to hold something. And then the moment that she holds that thing and looks at this foreigner, she sees his face, and she understands in the dream that this is my soulmate. This is the man I'm supposed to marry. So that was the dream on her side.
Right.
So we both go to Japan, and we are there. And in our first day, there is this weekend trip to Tokyo. And we were 15 students from all over the world that got this scholarship. And we had 15 plane tickets to Tokyo, and they were distributed randomly. And I got the seat next to her. Okay.
Of course.
So that's when we started to talk. And in the following day, so we started becoming very close friends, and we had a strong connection. And in the following day, we were having a walk in a Shintoist temple in Tokyo, a beautiful Shintoist temple in Tokyo. And I was taking many pictures because it was like so beautiful. And at a certain point, I had to tie my shoelace. So I gave my camera to her as we were crossing a bridge. And I said, "Can you hold this for me?" And at that moment, she remembered the dream, and she remembered that the face she saw in the dream was my face.
Wow. That's cool. Definitely gives me chills. That's a beautiful story.
Even me telling at this moment, it gives me too. So, yeah, we have been married for the past 8 years.
Wow. How long did you guys, how long from that point until you got married?
Well, it was not an easy journey. It was a bumpy ride. At the end of those 6 weeks, we both returned to our countries. And I was still doing my uni degree, so I had to finish that. She had to finish hers. So for the next 2 years, we didn't see each other. We were just kind of living in our own countries and doing chats and Skype and things like that. And 2 years after that, I traveled to Iran, proposed, and we got married.
Wow. Congratulations. That's a really cool, beautiful story.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the biggest synchronicity that happened in my life, I would say.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely a good one. And this has been quite an amazing chat. Giovanni, I feel like I could talk to you forever, but since you do have a soulmate wife that's probably waiting on you, I won't keep you. But I'm for people who are interested in connecting with you and so forth, is the best way through your blog, liveanddare.com?
Yes. So liveanddare.com, you can check my articles there. You can subscribe to the mailing list to receive more articles. And Brandon, I have a special gift, a special offer to your audience.
Oh, wow. Excellent.
Yeah. For those of you that...
We like gifts.
Yes. So for those of you that are inspired to get started with meditation, which was one of the single most important habits and activities in my life, I have created a beginner's meditation course, which is a 5-week course online that you go on your own pace. And I have a special 20% off discount only for your audience. And any of the members of your audience that joins, I'll give them a very special attention in the comment section. They'll also be able to send me emails at any time, and I'll answer them. Right?
Excellent.
So
excellent.
That's my gift. And for you to enroll in the course, then you can go to liveanddare.com/positivehead. Everything together. So that will redirect you to the course with the discount. And for those of you that
what did you say that discount was for the Positive Head listeners?
It's a 20% off discount.
Well, that is very generous, Giovanni. Any of you guys who want to have that calm, cool, collected demeanor that I referenced early on, go sign up with Giovanni. You can be like Giovanni too. But it is true, Giovanni. It's like any of you guys that are really dedicated to meditation. It's that same energy that feels so good to be around. And it's of course felt really good to connect with you. And I appreciate you taking time to come on to the show and share some of your very valuable insights. I will leave you with one final question. I always leave my guests with. And that question is, what is the meaning of life according to Giovanni Dienstmann?
The meaning of life is to explore this divine play according to the deepest desires in your heart, and to grow and move beyond everything into your true being in enlightenment. Beautiful.
Beautiful. Well said. Thank you so much, Giovanni. Once again, such a pleasure. And everyone, be sure and connect. liveanddare.com/positivehead if you guys would like to sign up for Giovanni's meditation course. And otherwise, until our paths cross again, journey well, my friend.
Thank you very much, Brandon. Take care.
Well, everyone, that concludes this week's interview episode. If you have enjoyed this positive download from our hearts and minds to yours, please take a minute, give us a rating or review on iTunes, since iTunes is the holy grail of all things podcasting. Your good reviews help us to reach more listeners. Also, we would be extremely appreciative if you would tell your friends and family about the show. Our sincere intent with the Positive Head podcast is to spread positivity to the world because we're selfish, quite honestly. I say that jokingly, but really only halfway joking. I'm referring to the good kind of selfish based on the knowing that we all get what we give in this life, because when we give, we're actually always giving to extensions of self, since we're all really one in the same consciousness, just in different bodies. So if you want to be a good selfish along with us by helping to spread the positivity, by all means, please proceed to shout about the Positive Head podcast from your rooftop. Otherwise, as you continue on your fabulous journey in this 3D reality, be sure to remember this. As long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Journey well, everyone, and thank you for being.